exploration has always been tied to human survival. For most of our history, moving into the unknown was not a choice, but a necessity. People traveled into dangerous environments to find food, shelter, and safety. Over time, as societies became more stable, exploration changed in character. Survival gave way to curiosity, ambition, economic interest, and personal prestige. By the 19th century, even the most hostile regions on Earth began to attract explorers, a pattern that continues today. One of those regions is the Arctic Circle, a place defined by extreme cold, lone darkness, and isolation. In this video, we will examine how humans first reached the Arctic, how they slowly mapped and understood it, and why this once-forgotten region is becoming strategically important in the modern world. The Arctic Circle surrounds the North Pole and the Arctic Ocean, touching the territories of the United States, Canada, Russia, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. Human presence in this region stretches far deeper into the past than many assume. Archaeological sites in Siberia, such as the Yana rhinoceros horn site, show evidence of human activity dating back roughly 32,000 years. These early inhabitants were ancestors of modern Siberian indigenous groups, including the Chukchi and Ninets, who relied heavily on mammoth hunting. Over thousands of years, some of these groups crossed the Bering Strait during periods of lower sea levels, settling in what is now Alaska and northern Canada. Their descendants are the Inuit peoples who still inhabit much of the Arctic today. Early European explorers, of course, had no knowledge of these migrations or settlements. The earliest known written reference to a European journey toward the Arctic comes from the Greek geographer Pytheas in the 4th century BCE. Sailing from Masaya, modern Masaya, he claimed to have traveled north past the British Isles to a land he called Thule. Scholars still debate whether this place was Iceland, northern Norway, or the Shetland Islands, and even whether Pytheas crossed the Arctic Circle at all. What matters is that the far north had entered the European imagination. Centuries later, during the Viking Age, Arctic exploration became more concrete. In the 9th century, a Norwegian sailor named Nadad accidentally discovered Iceland after being blown off course. Soon after, Ingolfur Arnason established the first permanent settlement there, founding what would become Viking expansion continued westward, driven by trade, settlement, and opportunity. Greenland was sighted by chance and later colonized by Eric the Red in the late 10th century. From there, Norse explorers reached North America, landing in present-day Newfoundland, an achievement confirmed by both archaeology and Norse sagas. At the same time, exploration was also advancing from the east. Slavic Palmer communities began moving along the northern coast of Eurasia as early as the 11th century, eventually reaching Novaya Zemlya, and in the 17th century, the Russian expedition led by Simeon Desnev became the first known European group to navigate the Bering Strait. While claims that Desnev reached Alaska remain unproven, Russian knowledge of the Arctic coastline steadily expanded. The true turning point came with the Age of Discovery. As the Ottoman Empire controlled key trade routes to Asia, European powers searched for alternatives. The accidental discovery of the Americas did not solve this problem. For centuries, explorers searched for a northern sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific. This legendary Northwest Passage drew expeditions led by figures such as John Cabot, Henry Hudson, and John Franklin. Many failed, and many lives were lost to ice, cold, and navigation errors. Yet each attempt added to the growing map of the Arctic. It was not until 1906 that Roald Amundsen successfully navigated the Northwest Passage. Even then, the route proved too shallow and dangerous for regular commercial use. By this point, exploration was no longer about opening trade routes alone. With few blank spaces left on the map, reaching them became a matter of prestige. The race to the North Pole between Robert Peary and Frederick Cook reflected this mindset. Although Cook claimed success first, Peary's later expedition was officially recognized, securing his place in history. For much of the early 20th century, the Arctic remained largely impractical for economic use. That changed with war. During the Second World War, the Arctic became strategically vital. Allied convoys crossed the Arctic Ocean to supply the Soviet Union, while German submarines attempted to intercept them. Over 100 Allied merchant ships were sunk in these waters. The Cold War deepened the Arctic's importance. The shortest flight path between the United States and the Soviet Union passed over the North Pole. Both sides built air bases, radar stations, and submarine infrastructure across the Arctic. Nuclear deterrence turned the region into a silent front line, with bombers, submarines, and surveillance aircraft operating under extreme conditions. After the Cold War ended, cooperation briefly replaced confrontation. The Arctic Council was established in 1996, bringing together the Arctic states to manage environmental protection, indigenous rights, and regional cooperation. Territorial disputes were largely handled through international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Even symbolic conflicts, such as the dispute over Hans Island between Canada and Denmark, were resolved peacefully. By the mid-2000s, this cooperative phase began to erode. Rising global temperatures brought renewed attention to the Arctic. The region is warming roughly 4 times faster than the global average. Since the 1980s, Arctic ice volume has declined by about 70%. Satellite data shows tens of thousands of square kilometers of ice disappearing each year. If current trends continue, the Arctic Ocean could be nearly ice-free in summer within decades. Melting ice changes everything. It opens access to natural resources and creates potential shipping routes that could reshape global trade. Geological surveys estimate that the Arctic contains a significant share of the world's undiscovered oil and gas reserves, though extracting them remains costly and uncertain. Russia has already invested heavily in Arctic energy projects, particularly liquefied natural gas facilities, betting that long-term demand will justify the expense. Beyond fossil fuels, the Arctic holds minerals critical to modern technology. Greenland, in particular, contains large deposits of rare earth elements, lithium, cobalt, and other materials essential for batteries, renewable energy systems, and advanced manufacturing. These resources have drawn attention not only from Arctic states, but also from external powers, including China and the United States. Shipping routes are another major factor. An ice-free Arctic offers 3 main corridors: the Northwest Passage through Canada, the Northern Sea Route along Russia's coast, and the Transpolar Route across the Central Arctic Ocean. All are shorter than existing routes between Europe and Asia, saving time and fuel. Each, however, comes with political, environmental, and logistical challenges. Of these, the Northern Sea Route is currently the most developed, largely due to Russia's fleet of icebreakers and coastal infrastructure. As the Arctic's value grows, so do tensions. Russia's symbolic planting of a flag on the seabed beneath the North Pole in 2007 signaled the more assertive posture. While disputes are still handled legally, the broader international environment has become more unstable. Russia has reopened Cold War-era bases, expanded its submarine fleet, and declared the Arctic a core strategic region. Other Arctic nations have responded by increasing military investment, conducting joint exercises, and updating their Arctic defense strategies. Despite this buildup, the Arctic remains an extremely hostile environment. Large-scale conflict there is unlikely in the near future. Infrastructure is limited, weather is unpredictable, and human activity remains difficult. But preparations are being made. States are positioning themselves for a future in which the Arctic plays a central role in global energy, trade, and security. The Arctic race has only just begun. What was once the edge of the known world is becoming a new arena of competition, shaped by climate change, technology, and geopolitics. The decisions made now will define who benefits from this transformation and at what cost.